fitness and wellness specialist, Kimberly Lou, and welcome to my personal freedom program, a complete guide to eliminate destructive patterns and unlock the ultimate you. Now, last week we were talking about belief systems, basically your BS, your bullshit. And this week we're going to talk about how to unpack that BS so that you can live the life that you love. Now, I remember a friend showing me a quote. It said something like, everyone comes with baggage. Find someone who loves you enough to help you unpack. And that's what I'm going to help you do today. Just consider me your unpacking coach. Now, think about a trip. Let's say you get excited, you book a trip, you pack your clothes, you pack everything that you need, but then you got to carry that suitcase with you everywhere you go. It could cost you extra at the airport if it weighs too much. It could cost you energy, it could cost you time. And eventually that baggage becomes very heavy. So I'm going to be, again, that packing coach that gives you 8 items so that you can live the life that you love in a light way. So let's get started. Right now I'm going to take you through an 8-step process to help you unpack your beliefs. I'm going to illustrate with a story though first. Let's just call my client Lily to protect her anonymity. So Lily comes into my office. She's got a little extra weight. She has some black bags underneath her eyes. Her face is pale. She's holding weight in the middle and she's exhausted. Not only that, she's lost her vitality. And she comes to me and she says, Kim, I want to lose weight. I'm working out, but nothing is working. It just seems like it's so hard. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels going nowhere fast. And I knew this is probably clearly a pattern. And I said, is there a particular area in your life that this is going on as well? Not just in your workouts, but in a particular like work, family. And she said, yes, in my work. I am a CEO of a very successful company. However, I have my, my employees and they seem to be at competition with each other and they just won't step up. And I'm constantly having to step up and it doesn't seem like anything gets done if I don't go into the office. And truly, it's just exhausting. It's hard. And I feel like, I feel like I'm stuck and I want to get to the next level, but it just doesn't seem like I'm going anywhere. And I knew that when she said that, not only happening in her workouts, but it was also happening in her work, that it was historical. So that being said, if it's hysterical, it's historical. Meaning, if you're having a big emotion around something, it usually stems from something in your past. So that being, I said, okay, this may be a historical moment. When is the first time that you ever remember feeling this way? And it usually starts within childhood. And she said, well, I don't know. And clearly, like the subconscious mind, when you start to touch in on a subject that it doesn't want to deal with, the first thing the person will say is, I don't know. So then I asked her, well, if you did know, what would it be? And without missing a beat, she said, well, my mom was an alcoholic. And I ended up having to step up and be the mother when I was a child. And it seemed like no matter what I did, it was never enough. And I said, very, very good. So you were the mom, you felt exhausted, you didn't feel qualified for being the parent, and it just seemed very heavy. Yes? And she said, yeah, absolutely. And I said, wonderful. And that's step 2. So step 3 would be, well, what did you make that mean about yourself? And then there's something that happens when we're children. There's something, a tragic event will happen. And then we'll make it mean something about ourselves. For example, for Lily, I said, okay, what did you make that mean as a child? And she said, well, I made it mean that I'm unlovable because if I was lovable, then she wouldn't be an alcoholic. I made it mean that I'm not enough because I couldn't take care of her. And I made it mean that everything has to be hard and no matter what I do, it's never going to get done. It's never going to be enough. And I said, wonderful. So not wonderful that she had that, but wonderful that she was identifying this belief that she made it mean that her mother was an alcoholic. And I said, okay, well, what are the consequences of having that belief? And again, she said, I'm not clear. I don't know what that means. And I said, well, the consequences of having that belief is, how is your health as a result of being tired all the time or feeling like you're not enough? And she said, well, I have an autoimmune disorder and I feel like it's caused from my stress. So I feel stressed out. And I go, okay. So one of the consequences is that you're stressed out and your health is failing. And she said, yes. I said, how's your work life? Is this costing you financially? And she said, absolutely. And I said, what about your self-worth? or your self-confidence? How is this affecting your self-confidence? And she said, well, I have low self-confidence and low self-esteem, and honestly, I just wish I could just feel better, but I just don't know how. And I said, okay, beautiful. And I said, does it affect anything else? And she goes, well, it does affect my family life, although I feel like my family life is great. However, I just feel like I'm stuck and I just want to take it to the next level and I don't feel like I can. I said, so there's a consequence of having this belief. And she said, yes, there's a huge consequence. It affects everything. So then it brings us to step 5. And I said, Lily, you know, what's your payoff of having this belief? And she said, what do you mean payoff of having this belief? She goes, there's no payoff for feeling miserable. And I said, well, there kind of is. You know, if you're feeling miserable, what is that stopping you from? And she said, well, I guess, you know, honestly, if I were to step up in my business, then I would have to assume more responsibility. And honestly, I don't even think I have the energy to assume more responsibility in my career because, again, I would have to do all the work. And honestly, that just seems like it's too much. And I said, okay, and what's the payoff of staying a little heavier, staying stuck and not losing weight? And she said, well, the payoff is I have this protective barrier around me. If I let go of the weight, then I don't have that barrier between me and the world. And then I have to let go of some of my comfort foods, some of my favorite foods. So I guess the payoff of the belief is really just going to have my comfort foods and stay stuck so I don't have to move forward, because to me, that would be just so much. And right then and there, a guru might say, aha, you have a fear of failure. And that's not my belief at all. And I said to Lily, I don't think that you're afraid to fail. I think you're afraid to succeed. Because if you did succeed, you would have to take everything to the next level. And wouldn't that yank you right back to childhood? And she said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, if you assume more responsibility, how much do you think that you would love that? Do you think that you would have more on your plate or less? And she said, well, way more if I took my business to the next level. And I said, that's exactly it. You're not afraid to succeed. You're not afraid to fail. As a matter of fact, I think you know you're going to succeed. And the thought of that terrifies you because it yanks you right back to childhood. And she sat there and she thought, oh my gosh, that's it, because of what it represents. I said, okay, so wonderful. We've identified the belief system, which is I'm not enough. And, you know, it's like no matter what I do, I'm going to feel stuck. But really, if you were to succeed, then you would have way more responsibility. So we need to unpack that belief and create a new one so that you can create a new thought pattern to succeeding, a new story. I basically said, hey, if you're going to tell a story about your life, let's not make it a bad one. Let's make it a good one. And she thought about that. And I said, think about it. It all comes in with a particular perception. So that being said, it's kind of like this. If a guy is an alcoholic and he has 2 kids, one kid says, I am an alcoholic father and I'm abusive because I had an alcoholic father. The other kid says, I'm a loving, wonderful, kind father because I had an alcoholic father and I never want my kids to go through that. So it's just a change of perception. It's also kind of like having a car accident. If there's 7 different witnesses to that car accident, you're going to have 7 different stories. So I said, Lily, let's find a new story that you can tell yourself so you can set yourself up for success and build a team around you so you don't have to do it all by yourself. And she said, wonderful, I'm in. What do we do? And I said, okay, once we determined all of these different things, let's now come up with a new belief, which is step 6. What's a new belief that you can tell yourself instead of I'm not enough and I have to do it all myself and everything's hard? What can you tell yourself now? And Lily said, well, I'm resourceful. And I said, yes, you're very resourceful. You know exactly what you need to do. Now, do you have a team around you who can help you, who you can trust? And she said, yeah, I already have a loving family. They can help me step up. And as a matter of fact, they already are. And I said, wonderful. And I said, okay, now we're coming into step 7. Lily, what is your solution? And she said, well, part of my solution we just did was coming up with a new belief system. Next, and she said, well, the most important part is my self-care. And I said, that is exactly it, Lily. I can't get you to the moon if your rocket ship explodes before we even get there. We need to make sure we have the kind of container that can get you to the moon and sustain it so that you can live the life that you love. So now that we've gone into step 7, we are now finally in step 8, which is I want you to visualize and actually see your life and what it looks like when you've lived your life in the solution. 90 days from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. What does your life look like? And she said, well, now that I'm living in the solution, my life looks like I'm at the beach, I'm traveling, I feel free, I don't have to come into the office every day. And I said, and if you could add a texture to that, what would it feel like? And she said, well, it would feel like silk. And I said, beautiful. And I said, if it had a smell, what would that smell be like? And she said, well, kind of like salt air and being at the ocean and maybe some coconut suntan lotion. I said, wonderful. So now you're hearing it. I hear seagulls in the background and ocean waves. And I said, wonderful. What does it taste like? And she said, I feel like it tastes like a fresh green juice with a little bit of lemonade in there. And I said, wonderful. So I wanted to get those textures in because sometimes people have a hard time visualizing. So sometimes people feel things better. Sometimes they feel it with their fingers, they hear it, they taste it. So when you can get those 5 senses in there, then that can really create a nice, beautiful visualization. And so that is the 8-step process. And Lily, after that, had me come into her corporation. She had me work with each and every one of her employees. She also had me work with her family member. And can I tell you, in 4 months, Lily quadrupled her income. She sold her house. She is now living the life of her dreams, her love. She took her business to a whole other level, and she's actually free, and everyone's stepping in to do her part. And I'm telling you, you can do the same. You can live that life that you love. Let's get started with our 8-step process. Okay, let's get started. I want you to grab a pen and a piece of paper, turn off anything that goes ding, and make sure that you have about 15 minutes to be alone with your thoughts so that you can get this done right. Okay, so step 1 is, again, step 1 is what is the situation? Okay, for Lily, her situation was the fact that she's tired. She's working out. Nothing's going the way that she wants to. She's stuck in her workouts. Not only that, she's stuck in her business. Nobody's stepping up. Everything's hard, and she has to do everything herself. So that's what we would write down. For Lily, have to do everything, excuse my writing, myself, and it's hard, I'm not enough, I need help, because I feel stuck. What's yours? Okay, that was step 1. Now we're going to go into step 2, which is if it's hysterical, it's historical, meaning if I have a big emotion, it stems from something in my past. I want to identify this so that I can now take it to another level. So then step 2, let me erase this here. Step 2 is, what happened? Step 2, hysterical, hysterical, historical. What happened? And step 2 for Lily, the historical part was that her mother was an alcoholic, and as a child, she had to step up and be the mother. She had all of this responsibility placed on her, and honestly, for a child, it's not fair, but she did have to assume responsibility, and then she carried that story with her everywhere that she went. She couldn't let her guard down, so that she had to make sure that she was the one that had the control so that she wouldn't be let down. And unfortunately, most of my clients, they're that type A, AA personality. They had to step up sometime when they were a child, and they got into the survival mode. And that survival mode has worked for them for so long until it didn't. Now that survival mode that got her to that place where she was so successful was now the very thing that was killing her. But that being said, it's like, okay, now Lily's mom is the alcoholic. What's the problem? Hysterical story, historical, what happened? Mom was an alcoholic. Mom was an alcoholic. alcoholic, and I had to assume responsibility for family. What's yours? Which now brings us to step 3. What did I make this particular situation? Mom was an alcoholic and I had to assume responsibility for my family. What did that make it mean about Lily? For Lily, she made it mean that if I'm not lovable, because if I were lovable, my mom would stop drinking. Or I can't trust anyone, so I have to do it all myself. So for Lily, again, step 3, let me come in here. My belief, step 3, is my belief behind the story is I'm not lovable. I'm not enough. I can't trust anyone. Again, step 3, what is my belief behind what happened? In Lily's case, she felt like she was unlovable, that life was hard, that she wasn't enough, and that she couldn't trust anyone. What is your belief by the story of what happened? And step 4, what is the consequences behind those beliefs? In Lily's case, it costed her financial freedom because she couldn't take her company to the next level because she couldn't do it all herself. It costed her her health because she had a stress-induced autoimmune disorder. It costed her self-worth. It basically costed her everything. Is costed a word? I'm not sure. But if it isn't, please forgive me. Anyway, step 4 is what are the consequences? Okay, step 4, what are the consequences? Consequences, look at that, that's a fancy word, behind my beliefs. And in Lily's case, her consequences were financial. Let me do that. Financial. Health, her energy, emotionally. It basically affected everything. Everything in Lily's life was affected by the particular beliefs that she carried from childhood. I mean, think about it like this. There's a computer, we have a laptop, right? Here's my trusty little laptop. If I have several programs going on at one time, the battery is going to drain. Even if I don't see those programs, they're still there, draining my beautiful computer of its precious energy. And your belief systems do the same. So we want to determine what it affects so that we can heal it. Now we're going to get to step 5. Step 5, which is what is the payoff of my belief? And you may say, there's no payoff for financial insecurity, my health, my energy, my emotion, and affecting everything. But there is a payoff. It's called a survival skill. We have a survival skill that we've had for a very long time, and it's got us to where we need to go, and that served us for so long, but now it's not serving us because now our survival skill is costing us everything. So that being said, in Lily's case, what the payoff of this particular belief was that it was keeping her safe. It was keeping her from experiencing pain from her childhood again. It was keeping her from stepping into more responsibility. And as far as like health and weight was concerned, her holding on to her weight kept her safe. You know, the payoff was that it was keeping that, you know, that extra weight on, keeping that barrier between her and the world. Again, though, it was costing everything. So what is your payoff to your belief system? Let's write it down. Okay, so step 5, what is your payoff of this belief? Okay, in Lily's case, her payoff was that protective barrier between her and the world with this extra little bit of weight. And then also for her, she wouldn't have to step up, so she could stay safe, not step up and assume responsibility. And again, she could stay right in her comfort zone in order to not move forward. Comfort zone. Now, a lot of times, you know, people, let's take a battered wife, for example, right? They go back to a relationship, or they keep attracting the same relationship over and over and over again. Again, the reason why that happens is oftentimes they'll go into the same situation because it's comfortable. And it's actually kind of challenging to step outside your comfort zone. And even if it's good, sometimes we don't feel worthy of being good or in a good environment. So it's actually more painful to live the life that you love than to go back to the old behavior, even though that's painful too. But that being said, we're going to walk you through this process so that you can start feeling comfortable in your new life and feel like you deserve it. So, step 5, what is your payoff of this belief? So now we're going to go into step 6, which is, what are your new beliefs? Again, we need to make sure that you have a new belief system so that the other ones aren't draining your energy, aren't draining your programs. So, what are your new beliefs? In Lily's case, her new beliefs were that I'm resourceful, that I can do it. I can surround myself with the people I need, and I know how to attract the people that I need in order to take it to the next level. And also that I am enough, I am lovable, and that it's okay for me to succeed. Now, what's your belief? Step 6, new beliefs. Again, in Lily's case was, I am lovable. And 2, I am resourceful. And, let's see, resourceful. And I know who I can attract to help me. Six, what are my new beliefs? And what are your new beliefs that you're going to make up now? So now we're into step 7, which is, what is my solution? In Lily's case, again, and in yours as well. First of all, we're going to come up with a new belief system. And then also step 7 for Lily was that she needed to get clear on her job descriptions and her employees' job descriptions. She also needed to create a plan of self-care. Again, she scheduled her workouts. She scheduled the times that she was going to eat, pray, and meditate. She put that all into her schedule. Then she planned in her family. Then she planned in her work on top of that. So her life was super balanced, and that helped her. So now, what is your solution to your new life? We all know what we need to do. So let's get quiet, come into your heart, and really ask myself, okay, what's the solution to my new life, and how am I going to do it? Now we're at step 8, which is visualization. Now this part is one of the most important parts because, again, we know how to live our old life. We don't know how sometimes to step into this new life, into the life we love, because it can feel really uncomfortable. So it's almost like we need a dress rehearsal for our new lives. And also, when I used to train professional athletes, I used to videotape their games. And we would go in and we would find out, okay, this is where I made a mistake, this is where I made a mistake. And then I would say, okay, what's your solution to that? They would come up with a solution, and I would have them visualize them, performing the new act in the solution, and 9 times out of 10, they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. So that being said, I want to apply the same thing to you. It's like, let's get into the dress rehearsal of our life. If you were living in the solution, what would your life look like now? What would it look like 90 days or a year from now? How would you be feeling? How would you see it? How would people be responding to you? So that being said, come into your heart and ask yourself, it's now 90 days from now. This is the first week of my 90-day program. This program is over. What does my life look like now that I'm living in my solution? and write it down. So that being said, what I want to do is I want to get into the 5 senses, because a lot of times people can't visualize, but they can feel. A lot of times sometimes people can't visualize or feel, but they can hear, they can taste, they have texture. It all depends. Everybody uses their senses differently. So in this visualization, I want you to go into every single sense that you could possibly feel. Like for Lily, you know, in step 8, her visualization, step 1 was, what does it look like? And to her, it looked like being at the ocean. And, you know, feeling all of that. And step 2, it felt like the wind in her hair being at the ocean. It felt like a warm sun. It felt free. She felt like she could do anything. And that brought us into step 3, was what did it taste like? And for Lily, it tasted like a fresh green drink with lemonade. And then step 4, what did it sound like to her? And for her, it was like hearing the ocean waves and hearing the seagulls cawking in the background and kids laughing, and it was just so peaceful to her. And then step 5, what did it smell like? And for her, it was coconut oil all over her skin, that suntan oil that you smell when you're at the beach. So we want to get all 5 senses into our meditation so that it can get ingrained into that subconscious mind, sending a message. You're now planting those seeds, so now you're now experiencing and visualizing the life that you love. It's like your dress rehearsal to get you ready. So let's do it now. Let's visualize. What does your life look like 90 days from now after you've completed this program while you're living in the solution? Feel it now. Okay, if you need more time, pause the video. And if you're ready to continue, I want you to take your pen and your piece of paper, and I want you to write down, when you're living in the solution, 90 days from now, what does your life look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like, sound like, and smell like? And what that does is it plants those seeds into your subconscious mind, and then you can look at that paper right before you go to bed at night, and you can look at that paper again when you wake up in the morning, and that starts planting the seeds of what you want your life to look like in the future. Now, think of it this way, okay? You book a trip, right? When do you start experiencing that trip? It's when you put the money down and you know you're going to purchase the tickets. Now you can't stop thinking about that trip. You're planning on where you're going to go, what you're going to eat, what you're going to do. This is the same thing. You've now purchased the tickets to your new life. So let's enjoy it and start living the life that we love. Okay, that was my 8-step process. Step 1 is, what is the situation? What's causing you to feel upset? Write it down. Step 2, if it's hysterical, it's historical, meaning if I'm having a big emotion, it usually stems from some time in childhood. Again, then step 3 is, what is the belief that I made the story mean? Step 4, what is the consequence of having that particular belief? Step 5, what is the payoff? What's the juice I get from not taking action? And then step 6, what's my new belief? Step 7, again, we get into the solution. Again, when we write down that solution, we start ingraining a new life for ourselves. And then step 8, which is visualization, go in, start imagining yourself experiencing and living your life in the solution and into the new life that you love. Again, if this video helped you out in any way, please press like and subscribe. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. We're going to work this out together.